Looking back at December 18th, 2020, the world was in a very dark place. You, me, and just about everyone else was in lockdown with no hope in sight. However, hope was about to arrive in the most unsuspecting way. Be sure to leave your thoughts on this scene in the comments. The anticipation of something spectacular and electrifying about to occur in this scene swells and occurs across several beats. These beats are audible, visual, and emotional. The first of these beats occurs whilst the tension is tangible. The Death Troopers are moments away from reaching Mando, Grogu, and the crew. An alarm rings through the helm of the ship as an oncoming craft approaches the Class 546 cruiser. At this moment, like you, I was rushing through the possibilities in my head. Cal Kestis? Plo Koon? Ahsoka? No, hang on. Could it be? A weakened Grogu, who essentially becomes our eyes and ears on the ground, begins to sense the presence of someone through the Force. The Death Troopers pause, and this is the moment my heart started to race. It couldn't be, could it? Silence cuts the tension. The music swiftly changes mood, as does Moff's expression. A cloaked figure appears on a monitor. Bo-Katan watches on, as the cloaked figure begins to take down the Death Troopers with ease, completely juxtaposing the difficulty at which Mando faced earlier in the episode. Bo-Katan then softly ushers two words,
a Jedi,
that with immediate effect relinquished me of all my frustrations and sadness experienced during certain sections of the sequel trilogy. This was the moment I figured just who was under the cloak. Mando turns with anticipation. Moff Gideon's face turns from arrogance to pure terror. The Empire feared one man above all, and here he was. Luke Skywalker was back. The familiar green light of Luke's lightsaber strikes down the Death Troopers with ease. Very reminiscent of the way Anakin would deliver targeted strikes, like father, like son. We, the audience, sense the same emotions as Grogu throughout the entire scene. Luke's powers we dreamt of witnessing during the sequels are unleashed. The Death Troopers fall one by one, standing no chance against the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy. Moff turns with the intention of killing Bo-Katan first, only for her Beskar to deflect the blaster shots. As she falls, another target stands before Moff. Mando saves Grogu, and with his choices spent, Moff deliberates for only a short while and tries to take the coward's route. We return to Luke, and by this point my emotions were everywhere. There were tears of joy and tears of overwhelming shock. And yet, the best was to come. As a child, Luke Skywalker served as a symbol of hope and optimism. Luke inspired generations of kids just like you and me. Luke evolved from a young boy into the greatest symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. Everything Luke lived through, we experienced alongside him. The journey from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi is so old. Yet, when we reconnect with Luke here, it's like no time had passed. Yet, even with the sensation that no time had passed, nothing could have prepared us for what was about to unfold. Grogu reaches out to the monitor, and just like us the viewer, you can almost reach out and feel our hero. As a Star Wars fan, moments like these stay with you forever, and are passed down generation to generation with such love and admiration. Luke enters the elevator, closing in on those trapped in the helm. Tension rises as the final 10 Death Troopers turn to face the last but most feared Jedi in the galaxy. We see Grogu again, still reaching out to Luke, representing the child in all of us, reaching out for Luke to save the day. The elevator works as the final symbol of intense apprehension, as the Death Troopers, Cara Dune, Fennec Shan, Mando, and Grogu all look on in dread, fear, confusion, and hope. The elevator climbs, finally reaching the floor lined with the Empire's latest creation. A Death Trooper tilts its head, and the door swings open. Using his lightsaber and the Force, Luke mows down the last of the Death Troopers. Like father, like son. After 40 years of witnessing Luke evolve from a young boy on Tatooine to the galaxy's most feared Jedi, there is one final element of Luke's evolution that was yet to be witnessed, and it's the one element that elevates us from our seats. This being his power with the Force, similar to how we witnessed the pure power of Vader for the first time in the final moments of Rogue One. Using his connection to the Force, Luke crushes the final Death Trooper like an empty can. The Luke we only ever dreamt of seeing was on show. He had arrived, and the makers of the show had delivered. The elegant hum of the lightsaber is all that's left, and serving as an audible reminder of the oncoming presence behind the door. Having just witnessed this figure take down the Death Troopers without hesitation, Mando, Bo-Katan, Fennec and Cara debate with fear and hesitation as to whether they should open the door. Grogu, however, representing himself and us the viewer, reaches out, desperate for the cloaked figure to be confirmed as a Jedi, as Luke Skywalker. The figure enters the room, finally unveiled as Luke Skywalker. I can't lie, there were tears of just about every emotion by this point. With just a few lines of dialogue, it's established that Luke is here to rescue Grogu and train him in the Jedi ways. A sad goodbye between Mando and Grogu reminds us just how close the clan of two had become whilst navigating the galaxy in search of a Jedi. In a lovely moment, R2 appears, easing Grogu's fears and wrapping up an extremely heartfelt and electrifying ending. But of course, it's the heroic return of Luke Skywalker that this episode will be remembered for. The way the arrival is staged, the way the music swells, the anticipation, the unbearable tension. Luke's connection to the Force and his true power is unlike anything we've seen from him before. The return of our favourite hero was just about perfect. I feel comfortable speaking on behalf of us all when I say, this is what we've been waiting for. This episode has since paved the way for Luke to return once again in the Book of Boba Fett. In Luke's most recent appearance, audiences caught a glimpse of what he'd planned all along following the events of Return of the Jedi. Luke was actively seeking out Force-sensitive beings across the galaxy, with Grogu being his first. For me, what unfolded in the final episode of The Mandalorian Season 2 may just be the greatest sequence in the Star Wars franchise. Not only did this episode bring Luke Skywalker back, and absolutely nail the execution, it's now put in place the foundations for Luke's story to be told further and bring him back for good. I'm certain we'll see Luke again in the Mandoverse, facing a new dark side threat in the shape of Grand Admiral Thrawn. So those are my personal feelings on the scene. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How did this scene affect you? And when did you realise it was Luke Skywalker boarding the ship? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my Vader Kenobi Revisited video here, and subscribe to this channel for all our Star Wars adventures.